Thank you. The chair now recognizes Ms. Ocasio-Cortez.
Thank you. I've spent a decent amount of my time here in Congress sitting through panels and hearings of men attempting to restrict the rights of women and telling us that it's for our own good. But I want to dive a little bit more deeply into why this issue, targeting trans women in sports, is particularly problematic, not just for trans girls, but for all of us. We're here today because there's a proposal here, and there are several proposals here, to further marginalize trans women in sports. And I think about this all the time because trans people in the United States doesn't even exceed 1% of our population, and yet there is so many resources and energy and time dedicated to figuring out how we can more finely exclude them from our sports. And I thought, why? Why so much effort and dedication on such a tiny portion of the US population when there virtually is no major issue that is precipitating? And I started to realize that a lot of these proposals here involve invasion of privacy of all women. Ms. Goss-Graves, can you tell us a little bit about what sex testing looks like for youth in states with trans athletic bans?
It's terrible. In some states, any individual could challenge whether someone is a girl enough to play. In some states, it requires actual genital verification, which is shocking. And there aren't, it's not as if there.
And let me just stop you right there. You said there are some proposals. I mean, we've seen this in Ohio. There was a proposed ban on trans athletes that originally allowed for genital examinations on minors in order to, quote unquote, protect women. Is that correct?
Unfortunately, yes.
And so we're seeing here, in this guise, under the guise of not only trying to further marginalize trans women and girls, we are talking about opening up all women and girls to genital examinations when they are underage.
That's right.
Potentially just because someone can point to someone and say, I don't think you're a girl.
That's correct.
And we're saying this in an environment of a post-Dobbs America where states are criminalizing access to abortion and want nothing more than data on women to figure out who's getting a menstrual cycle, who doesn't have one. And we're supposed to believe that this is going to make us better and safer? I think not. And per usual, I don't believe we're sitting here in a panel of men that has actually thought about the biology and privacy consequences of all women, trans or cisgender, here. Ms. Goss-Graves, in addition to that, are there certain groups more likely to face discrimination under these bans? When it comes to, and what you were speaking to, particularly when it comes to Black women and girls?
Yeah, we have seen that there are examples of Black women who are even professional athletes whose bodies have been more examined and demonized. We've seen that with my fan favorite, Serena Williams, whose body is often talked about. That sort of challenging them for who they are, if it is codified into law, is something that we would expect to see more.
And this also deeply intersects with a secondary issue, which is racial bias in the medical field. When we have vast proportions of populations that have been studied and tested are not racially or otherwise identity-based representative of the broader US population. And so what gets determined as a norm oftentimes gets pegged to largely white populations that have been studied, and then Black women and girls are then further subject to marginalization. This has been in your experience and what you've seen as well, right?
That's correct.
And so we're supposed to sit here on this side of the dais and To ranking member Lee's point, see a party that has voted against women's access to abortion, voted against our right, the Lilly Ledbetter Equal Pay Act, voted against the Violence Against Women Act, voted against our right to have access to contraception, and also doesn't even vote for equal funding, equitable funding in women's sports. And I'm supposed to believe that this is who's looking out for my best interests? I think not. And to that, I yield back.
Thank you. The chair now recognizes